So this is called deargod.com. One day, a child searched for a name on the computer. Name God, address unknown. And the response was immediate. No matches found. The child asked the parents, where do you find God? And they answered back quickly, well, in heaven, of course. The next day, the search continued. Name God, address heaven. Again, with the speed of light, the answer appeared. No matches found. And the child was stumped. If you can't find God through the internet, where could you? But with the determination of a young mind, the child wrote an email anyway. Deargod.com. I tried to find your address, but couldn't. My computer tells me you don't exist. My parents say you live in heaven, but I couldn't find that either. My friend says you can only be found in church, but he meant his church, not mine. At the supermarket, the cover of a magazine showed a picture of the sky and said you were dead. People on the news say that if you existed, bad things wouldn't happen. My grandmother says, I'll only meet you if I've been good all of my life. I'm not so sure about all of this, so I thought I would ask you directly, but I don't know how to reach you. And with that, the child clicked the send button, turned off the computer. The next day, they received an email, and it read, to find me is not hard. It's easy. Sit quietly. Be gentle with the earth. Look inside of yourself. Hold out your hand to someone who needs strength. Smile. Respect yourself and others. Enjoy your life and walk quietly amidst the nature, hope, and always in love. And there I will be in a form and a name you are comfortable with. God, light, love, angel, Buddha, spirit, Christ. I am not lost. I am you, and you are me. We are energy and light and love, which cannot be destroyed, only changed. Remember to open your heart, for there in the stillness is my address, and it is you. And the child smiled. Mm-hmm. One of the things this week that's coming up, and I'd probably be a little amiss if I didn't mention it, for in spiritualism, March 31st is considered Hydesville Day. Has anybody not heard of Hydesville Day? Okay, good. So we can do a little teaching here also. Mm-hmm. So Hydesville Day, March 31st in 1848, was the day that spiritualists claim started modern spiritualism. Now, I am a spiritualist and I am proud of being a spiritualist, but I don't always agree with some of the things that are taught about spiritualism. But that's me. But let me give you a little background. On March 31st, it is claimed that a family in Hydesville, New York, which has now been renamed to Newark, New York, had an experience that they claimed with their daughters, who they had 3, began to hear rappings or tappings in their wall. Now, at the time, there was not a lot out there about mediumship, about communication with people who have passed into that energetic world that we call the spirit world. And they claim that they formulated a way to communicate with the rappings, the tappings, the knocks, where 1 knock would be an A, 2 knocks would be a B, 3 knocks would be a C, so on and so forth. So you can imagine spelling out a question, how long you'd be knocking. But what they found was that when they would knock a question, tap a question, they would get a response. And through those responses, they came to understand that there had been a peddler at the time. And remember, this is 1848, and people would not go to stores so much as people would be going to different areas of the countryside and selling their wares and their goods. That a peddler was murdered, and that the spirit person that was doing the knocking was this peddler who had been killed, and had been killed apparently in or around the property that the Fox family lived in at the time. In that wake of that situation, neighbors started to come to the girls, come to the houses, wanting to have that communication with their own people in the spirit side. That spread. And you can imagine, again, in that age and time, it wasn't like somebody would pick up a phone and put something on Facebook that everybody in the world knows. This is spread through people talking about it and newspaper and things like that. So they got to be quite famous in their area, and then that spread and that spread and that spread. And again, spiritualism claims that that was the start of what we consider modern spiritualism in terms of the way communication happens, in terms, not that we have to knock at everything, but in terms of communication, in terms of the awareness that normal, everyday people could be involved in this. And I think that is the main takeaway from this story. There's been a lot of research where they're showing that the story that in spiritualism is taught in Lyceum and to kids and to grown-ups as they come into this religion, into this philosophy, that it probably didn't quite happen that way. That there was a lot starting to happen prior to that, that neighbors of the Fox family were getting some signs from the spirit world already. And we know that the spirit world just didn't appear on March 31st, 1848. We know that people have been working with the spirit world since the beginning of mankind and womankind. That at the time they used to be called different things. They would be called wizards or wise women or shamans, or they would have these names and this prestige that people would go to somebody for that connection, that they couldn't do it themselves. So to me, the big takeaway about Hydesville, what has come to known as Hydesville Day, is not about the Fox sisters. And I'll probably be shut down from the spiritualists of the world over this. But it really, to me, isn't about that. What it is about is it allowed it to be okay. It allowed that connection, that communication, that sensitivity that many people have to be accepted in a way that everybody can do this. Everybody can connect. Everybody has the right to feel that connection and that right to be in connection with energy. So it's no longer, a wise person. Well, we are wise, but it's no longer you have to go to somebody special, that we have this availability and this opportunity for everybody to make their own connection. And to me, that's what modern spiritualism is. It's that shift from we go see the wizard to we do it ourselves, or we're in circle with our neighbors, or we're in circle or class with those people that don't have a title, that are just beings, that have a soul, that connects to the soul of beings who no longer have a body and are energy. So my take on Hydesville Day is a little bit different. I think there's a lot of people who are looking at these stories and saying, well, are we perpetuating a truth? Or are we perpetuating something that people can feel safe with or understand with? For some reason, people took to the fact that these three young girls had this ability, and they became very famous in the States and across into Europe. Other people started to sit in circle at one point in New York City. And again, I know this is, 90 years ago or whatever it is at this point in time. But there used to be thousands of circles in New York City itself, because what did people have to do? They weren't watching Netflix, right? They weren't scrolling on their phone. They didn't have television. They didn't have radio. They had communication with each other. So they would sit in circle 5 nights a week. and work with the spirit world. And as we know with anything, the more we practice, the better we get at it. So mediums began popping up all over the place. Here went over into the UK, into Europe, where there were, again, a lot of circles formed, a lot of things happening. But in addition to that, and it's very interesting because in 1848 also, it's the only year Niagara Falls is completely frozen over. So is that coincidence? Is there something energetically that was happening at the time? That I'm not quite sure of yet. I've got a little bit more thinking to do on that one and research on that one. But when we think of that time period of the late 1840s into the early 1900s, and then in the early 1920s, because of World War I, mediums and mediumship circles and development circles were huge, huge. Everywhere you went, it was commonplace to talk about it. You didn't have to say, I'm a spiritualist, I'm not a spiritualist. It's just, I'm in the connection. I'm in the connection. But that time period in our life, in our history of our country and also in Europe, it was a big time of change. Things like the railroads were coming in, things like the telegraph, industrial things were happening at a rapid pace, more rapid than it had ever done before. So we've got this period of change. We've got this period where women up to that point weren't usually found in places of speaking or of status. And what this movement did in modern spiritualism allowed women to the platform, women to speak, women to demonstrate. So it brought the thought of change, of suffragette, of voting, of civil rights, because again, in the 1860s was our civil war in this country. There became rights and focus on rights. So when we look at modern spiritualism, again, to me, it's not the Fox sisters. It's this time of birth of so many things that brought us into the 20th century and beyond. Now, when these things were happening and what was going on, were there people who would stand up and say, you're the devil? Absolutely. But they still do today. People will still say, you talk to the dead, you're the devil. Okay, I'll have to check my tail a little bit later and see if that's true. But all of these changes that occurred, all of these things, we are sitting here today because of that shift in 1848. We're sitting here today not worried at this moment of time of people coming in and saying, you can't do that. We can sit here in a space that we rent. And when we put down Inner Spiritual Center, spiritualist community, people don't tear up the application and say you can't, although the town did try at one point. We had to fight a little bit for that one. So there's still misunderstanding, but that point of time, March 31st, 1848, gave us a start point. Throughout the time of mediumship and connection, people have gone to jail for it. Bill Collar's grandmother was put in jail constantly for demonstrating her mediumship. And she would be in the jail, and his grandfather would have to march down to the local jail and pay something like 6 pence to get her out until they came for her again. They'd leave her alone for a while, and then they'd come. This happened in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s in England. So in this movement, in this change from let's go to see the wizard to let's all be a part of this, there's been people who've had to stand up for what we take for granted today. Just sitting here years ago would have not been allowed. I've always said, and you can argue the fact of this or not, I've always said I look at my job as a medium, not my job as a minister, my job as a medium to put myself out of business, because it's important for each one of us to recognize and to understand that we have the ability within us to take that breath and be connected to that energy that we may not see all the time, we may not hear, we may not feel all the time, but that we walk through every single moment of every single day. The concept of heaven, someplace we go to, is false. We don't go somewhere. We change our energy to something different. And that energy, just like in this room, we've got Wi-Fi waves, right? That we don't see. But if you hold something up that connects to the Wi-Fi, it's there. Think about that for a second. Are we any different? Are we any different from an energy change? Are we any different from something like water that changes to ice, that changes to steam if you melt it? The components are still H2O. It's still hydrogen and oxygen. It's still there. But what has changed is its form. That's all. Instead of picking up a glass and seeing the water, it may evaporate as steam. And as that evaporates, do we see it? No. But is it there? Yes. So the spirit world is an energy that works at a different vibration than our physical bodies are. And therefore, just like Wi-Fi, just like steam, just like anything else that is moving around our bodies and our space that we may not be aware of, that energy, that vibration, that level for the spirit world is who they are. It doesn't go somewhere. It's just there. So we walk through the spirit world all the time. Do we tune in or don't we is our free will choice. If we tune in all the time, it's overwhelming, because who wants to hear all that chit chat, all of that energy, feel all of that all the time? For most of us, we can't handle that. I know I can't. So we choose when we tune in, and we choose when we're not tuned in. And I would say the spirit world does the same. Can you imagine from their side of life, listening to all of us all the time? Can you even imagine? And all of us saying, well, I don't know if I'm connected. I don't know if they're there. You know, they need to show me a sign. Isn't that our thing? Show me a sign that you're there, rather than us just taking a breath and saying, here we are. So I'm sure the spirit world also tunes us in and tunes us out as needed. Maybe they have more capacity than we do, which I am sure is true also. Our thoughts, though, about all of this, we have to remember that it's not because just somebody says something. Just like this story about the Fox sisters. Were the Fox sisters there on March 31st? Absolutely. Was there something going on in their home environment that led to this? Absolutely. Did it go the actual way that the story is being told? I don't think so. But that's me. You may read it and feel something different. So it's not that there's bits and pieces of this history that are incorrect, but maybe somebody had a better publicist than somebody else. And we've got to sometimes look at all of this work as what feels right to you. It's not me telling you or somebody else telling you, or you reading a book and saying, oh, that's got to be it. What do you feel? What do you sense? What brings you to the conclusions you come to? It's something that we all can connect to. Nobody has a gift. I hear that word one more time, I'm probably going to use a word I don't want to use. It's not a gift. It's just being a soul in this human experience. And soul to soul is always available. So some people may say, I can't do it. My question would be, have you actually tried? There's no reason why we cannot individually connect to those people that have gone before us, the people who we love, the people maybe we still have some work to do with, the people that maybe we didn't love so much, and maybe now's an opportunity to look at it differently. I don't know until we do it. But each one of us has that ability and has that connection. Why? Because we are first a soul. And soul to soul is what we're talking about. Soul to soul is a person, soul to soul is an animal, soul to soul is a plant, because everything has energy. So when we think about Hydesville Day, when we think about the availability of what we're calling modern spiritualism, we're all those pioneers right now. We're all those people right now that can take this and move it along. Whether it's doing it publicly or doing it privately or just sitting in quiet connection, we move it along. And as we go further, some of these old stories may change. Some of these older stories may be found to have more parts to them. And that's okay. It's true of anything in history. It is written by people at the time in the way that they want to write it. Doesn't always mean it's the truth. So when we become involved in our connections, then we can become involved in the continuation of this story. So your last name may not be Fox. Your last name is who it is, and you are just as important in this story as what was written about March 31st, way back in 1848. So hold that dearly, hold it proud, and be a part of the pioneers moving forward in this work. So a little history lesson I didn't think I was going to get into as much, but there you have it. And hopefully you can hear from some of these words about how important you are in the present. It's not just about the history. So thank you, everybody, for your attention and for your thoughts in this. And I would just ask that you think about it a little bit. Just don't drop it off. Think a little bit about your role in this, about your connection in this, and knowing that the spirit world is not there. It's right here. Thank you, everybody.